know that we right now are living in one of the worst economies and economic crises that we've seen since the Great Depression. And this has been suggested, it has been suggested at least today, that this is a Band-Aid. And there is no doubt that there is a larger problem where we live in a nation that is chronically addicted to foreign oil, that is not only an economic issue, but is also at its very heart a homeland security issue. Above and beyond that great debate, we have blue-collar families here in New York State that really and truly are having to decide the difference between filling up their tank, buying food, making a mortgage payment. There's certain people who are realizing that it doesn't even pay them to get a job because of the cost of what it takes to fill up that tank. And I think it's entirely important that the people of this state, with nearly 2 million have left, many of those 2 million have left because of the taxation, the overregulation, and the openly inhospitable environment, not only for small business owners, but for working families and blue-collar people who really have always made this state great. And I think it's important that we send a very clear message and a very clear signal as a body and as a legislature that we understand, that we feel the concerns of the people in this state, and whether it be a Band-Aid or a tourniquet, it is well beyond the time where this state legislature should respond to the concerns and the needs of the people in New York. This gas tax holiday will send that exact message. And I tell you, when they see a reduction at the pumps of nearly 33 cents and possibly more with the local option, it will put in the back of their head how these prices have been inflated over time because of overtaxation. And in my opinion, that will be a very good thing. So I want to thank those who support this piece of legislation, and it's certainly a great step forward during this very important summer holiday season. Thank you. And I can tell you that in my district, where we're right on the border, I think that you could actually see an increase in economic activity. So while you may have an impact of over $60 million a hit to the general fund, at the direction of the comptroller because of the increase in economic activity to the state, we could actually see revenues increase overall.
Mr. President, I believe that the sponsor did already state that that his tax holiday would cost the state $60 million. I believe that's what he said. What are we cutting out of the state budget to make up for the loss of $60 million?
Do you continue to yield?
It was a great conservative Republican, Jack Kennedy, who cut taxes during his administration at the federal level, and actually realized that by doing so that revenues overall, actually he was a Democrat, I'm sorry, and then saw revenues increase overall because of economic activity. At the end of the day, this state, and I believe it was the Democratic governor, had suggested that this state no longer has a future of being number one in overall taxation, number one in all the wrong ways. And it has been suggested on the other side that this is merely a Band-Aid approach anyways. We're talking about a very small chunk of money which will go a very long way for the blue-collar families, Democrat, Republican, vegetarian, vegan, and everywhere in between, that are struggling to make ends meet. So I believe that because of increased economic activity, especially during these holiday periods, and as you have just suggested, folks coming from out of state to come to this great state to take advantage of this great discount, which certainly will get a lot of press, that we will actually see the coffers increase. And let us remember that New York State government should not be happy nor smile at the misery of taxpayers as sales tax revenues increase over which they have no control.
Mr. President, if the sponsor would continue to yield.
You continue to yield, Senator Ball.
Yes, Mr. President.
While I appreciate the discussion of the political party of the great President Jack Kennedy and the broad global impact for vegans and vegetarians from sales tax, right now, if we pass this bill, what does the sponsor intend for us to cut out of the state budget? Because it takes $60 million away from money intended for our roads and bridges.
Mr. President, this is a great example for the 3 or 4 people who are watching on TV today of philosophical differences. And it is my belief, and I believe many on this side, that by freeing up the private enterprise, by cutting taxes on blue-collar families, by providing economic activity, we will actually see an increase in revenues. That is our philosophy. So there will be no need to cut any further. In fact, it is our contention and my belief that because of the cut in taxes and because of the attention brought to these gas tax holidays, that we will actually see an increase in overall revenue projection. That's just a very clear difference of that side versus this side.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think Senator Ball's right. The people who are watching, hopefully more than 3 or 4, there's certainly more than 3 or 4 of us here in the chamber, will see that there's a philosophical difference. I'm extremely concerned about passing a bill that would have an immediate loss of funding for the state of New York without explaining what we're going to cut in our budget to make up for that loss of money. So again, I would like Senator Ball to please clarify to me what he is proposing we cut out of our budget specifically to make up for the loss of $60 million intended for our roads and bridges in this year's budget.
Mr. President.
Senator Ball.
At this point, I'm going to answer this one more time because I understand that sometimes I don't always possess the ability to communicate to the best of my ability. So I'm going to be very clear on this. And it was even suggested by the senator when she asked about tourists coming from out of state. New York State, our legislative body has the opportunity today, as well as the Assembly, to move forward and say the Empire State's back. We're open for business. We want tourists, we want folks in the border areas to come to New York State, to take your state vacation, to take your vacation and come to New York State. And in order to incentivize that, we're going to cut the gas tax, the method in which you actually can get and travel around this state, by a whopping 33 cents. When the local municipalities opt in, you're talking about nearly 50 cents. That's no small dollar added up over time. By doing that, we will see tourists coming into New York State, and I can tell you that while some of us may not believe it, in my blue-collar community, I see an awful lot of people using coupons. I see a lot of there's one gas station in particular, they try to have a bare bones rate, and there are cars lined up and trucks lined up around the street in order to be able to go to that service station. This will create the type of energy and buzz that we need to put New York State back on the map, to bring those tourists in. We will not need to cut because instead of being statists, instead of believing that it is our job to stand here and defend the revenue streams of New York State government, we have got to realize that it is our job to protect the pocketbooks of the blue-collar people who are struggling and making New York State great, but struggling to do so. And the moment that we realize we're here to protect their wallets and not our government coffers is the moment that New York State will once again be great. And to the extent that we continue to defend the growth of government and to fight against any ending of taxation, that's just another nail in the coffin for a state that was built not by this government, but by private enterprise, by blue-collar people, union and not. And that is exactly what this gas sales tax holiday will accomplish.
Continue to yield.
Will you continue to yield, Senator Ball?
Yes.
Thank you. I like that we're talking about that it will be a sales tax break for blue-collar New Yorkers. Is this a means-tested program? Are we only allowing this to be a sales tax deduction for those people who meet some legal definition as a blue-collar New Yorker?
Mr. President, it's not means-tested. We do not want to means-test economic activity coming into the state. We want folks who are lower middle class, poor, rich, everything in between, realizing that New York State has this great opportunity and coming here. So I don't even understand why that would even be considered.